Good evening, everyone. This is Flagler Weather Info with a special weather update. This is the 2nd of October, 2025, and we're going to talk about the nor'easter and some of the potential flooding impact from this weather event. So, dangerous beach and marine impacts are expected to continue through the weekend with a high rip current risk. High surf and small craft advisories are in place. Wind gusts to the coast of 30 to 40 miles per hour will be possible. That's getting up to gale force there through Saturday rather. And then we're running into the potential of some tidal flooding. Coastal flood advisories in place right now, and that includes the St. Johns River Basin, northeast Florida, southeast Georgia, including intercoastal waterway for some minor tidal flooding, which has been ongoing. A coastal flood watch is in place now from Friday evening into Sunday for the potential of moderate tidal flooding, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. We're also looking at rain chances increasing, daily rounds of heavy rain and isolated embedded thunderstorms. That'll increase the localized flood risk at coastal and low-lying areas. So taking a quick look at what's going on with the different advisories. Dangerous surf conditions are expected to continue. We do have a high-risk rip currents and a high surf advisory for the entire coastal area, and this is in place at least into the weekend. The main concern is going to be coastal flooding. Is right now a coastal flood watch is in place. This takes effect Friday evening and will be in place through the whole weekend into late Sunday. This could potentially be upgraded to a coastal flood warning if needed. There's a potential of 2 to 2.5 feet above the highest regular high tide that you normally get. And I'm going to show you what areas may be affected if that were to come to pass. This could affect some roads, vulnerable structures, and also contribute to moderate to major beach erosion along the coast. Small craft advisory for the coastal and offshore waters due to those winds potentially gusting to gale force. And also look into the tropics. We do have one area of concern that is pretty close to us. It's actually in the Bahamas. There are some signals that a weak low pressure system may try to develop along an old front, which is part of the reasons why we're having this unsettled weather. It's going to move northwestward across the state of Florida and into the Gulf. Currently, it has a very low 10% chance of development in the next 7 days. And anyways, Imelda is now post-tropical, and we have another area out here about 10%. We'll take a closer look at that in a little bit. So this is the potential for flooding. So just so everyone has an idea, this is Flagler Beach right here, and this is normal tide levels. So if we increase it to 2.5 feet, which is the possible maximum that we might see, when we get to there, 2.5 feet, you notice that we have some flooding South Flagler Avenue, potentially getting some other side streets down there, getting into some of the parts of South Flagler Avenue through southern Flagler Beach, possibly affecting some areas here in the southeast part of Flagler Beach. And again, remember, this is worst case scenario, 2.5 feet above mean high water. And you get into Beverly Beach a little bit here as well. But the main area that gets affected, though, is Flagler Beach. And this potentially could get a little bit of water on North Flagler Avenue, but more likely to affect areas on South Flagler Avenue. We could see some water on the road anywhere from, looks like, South 3rd Street onward in some places where it does get in, other places it does not. Again, that's 2.5 feet. If we get 2.5 feet on a high tide, 2 feet, you can notice that we lose a lot of that. And then right now it's been running about 1 foot to a half foot above normal. And in that case, you do get, 1.5 foot above normal. You start to get some flooding in South 23rd Street and some other places right there. So just to get a picture of what that possibly could look like, this tidal flooding is very difficult to forecast. It's very hard to predict exactly how bad it's going to be. One of the main contributing factors is a long wind out of the northeast and out of the north. And what that does is if you get a really strong wind, it persists out of the northeast for a long period of time, or even out of the north, all this water up here, Palliser Basin, and by marine land and all through here gets forced down the intercoastal waterway and down into the Flagler Beach area. And that persistent onshore wind traps each tide. Every time there's a high tide, the water goes up, and then it goes back down a little bit, but it doesn't get let out. Then there's another high tide, more water gets jammed in as long as that northeast wind stays up with us. And that wind potential could get a little stronger. So it's going to depend on the wind. Also, if we get a lot of rain, it could also contribute to that as well. So again, taking a look at the tropics, this is the latest. This has now been upgraded to about 20% chance of development, this system out here. And we got a long time to watch that one. This one here, very low chance, 10% chance of development as it moves into the eastern Gulf, moving over Florida, but it may actually increase our rain chances. So taking a look at winds, for tomorrow, we're expecting gusts of wind to possibly get up to gale force at the beaches, gusting up to 40 miles an hour at Marineland, 40 miles an hour at Beverly Beach, 38 miles an hour in Flagler Beach, and of course it'll be quite breezy through the entire county. Now as we get into Saturday, we may actually see gusts above gale force into 43 miles, well not necessarily above gale force, still in gale force, but gusting up to 43 at Marineland, 43 at Beverly Beach, and 40 at Flagler Beach, and it's quite breezy inland, but right along that immediate beachfront is going to see where those gustiest winds will be. Sunday, we're still gusting up to 40 in Flagler Beach, 38 at Marineland. But again, you can go inland, that gets reduced quite a bit. And then as we go into next week, Monday, still gusting up to gale force along the beaches. And when we get to Tuesday, things still gusting up to gale force at the beaches. Get to Wednesday, now winds start to subside just a little bit. So those winds, and depending which way they come from, will sometimes help contribute to that flooding in the intercoastal waterway. There's some signals, though, the winds might come more out of the east and maybe southeast, and they may actually reduce some of that flooding. But we'll have to see how that shakes out. Right now, Coastal Flood Watch is in place. It's not been upgraded to a warning as of right now, but that can change. So let's talk about rainfall amounts real quick before we get out of here. So looking at rainfall amounts, we're looking at storm totals of 6 to 8 inches, just about countywide. This takes us from now until next Thursday. This is a week's worth of rain. So how about the next 2 days? This takes us from now into Saturday, 1.5 to 2 inches. Okay, this takes us into Sunday, 3 to 4 inches. This takes us into Monday, 4 to 6 inches. And this takes us into Tuesday, 6 to 8 inches. But after we get past Tuesday, we notice those amounts don't really go up that much anymore. So the bulk of the rain looks to be over the weekend and into early next week. So taking a quick look around the county right now, the Hammock Dunes Bridge. We are breezy up there, but not gusting just quite yet. Gusting up to about 22 miles per hour, and it's kind of cleared off right now. And a lot of times when you get rain with these systems, you'll get it in the morning and you get a break in the afternoon, but not all the time. Marineland is where we typically see our strongest winds, and right there we are gusting up to 25 miles an hour. Winds more or less out of the east now. So if we can keep the winds out of the east instead of the northeast, that may actually kind of help us with the flooding a little bit. Again, I'm not a complete expert in that. We have to watch and see what the National Weather Service says. The National Weather Service upgrades that to a flood warning, then we can expect those tides to come up higher. So we'll take a look at the current conditions in the intercoastal right now, and we will be doing that by going to the National Weather Service and looking at the flood gauges and how things stand. So let's get down to Flagler. And let's start with Bing's Landing, because Bing's Landing, this is the one on the Intercoastal Waterway. And then Bing's Landing, the tide there takes about 2 to 3 hours to get down to Flagler Beach. So right now, looking at things here, we have kind of stabilized a little bit. We're just touching into the moderate, down to like about almost 2 feet above normal to get to moderate flood stage. And then we are dipping down into minor, and it's coming back up now. There's a high tide this evening, so we have to see how far it gets up. But the good news is that it looked like we had a peak tide about a day or two ago. Yeah, about a day ago, and then the subsequent tides not as high. So that's a little bit of good news. We have to see if that trend holds. Looking at Bulau and looking at things down there, we're up in the moderate flood stage right now, but looks like it's kind of wobbling right around moderate flood stage. We have to see how that shakes out. They had a fair amount of rain down there, and we might be able to take a look at that in a little bit. So looking at Haw Creek now, and right now we're up in minor flood stage there, and it has not increased that much. And looking at Shell Bluff, and as soon as I get Shell Bluff to come up here, and Shell Bluff is looking like, yeah, let's see here. Yeah, it's jumped up into minor, but we're not into any higher than that. But it's trending upward, so that's something that we'll have to watch. And then out here, Palisade Creek, taking a look out there. That one's been staying in minor flood stage. And then the last one out here at Matanzas Inlet, and this is the inlet where we get the where our tides come from. And it looks like the last couple tides have been a little higher. So again, we'll have to watch things and see how things shake out in the days ahead. And let's see if I can get the rainfall amounts that come up here. And we will enable that. And let's see here. So far this month, you can see down here, let's get the scale up here, fair amount of it in the southeast part of the county. And that is for the month of September. And let's see if I can get, do I have October available yet? No, I do not. But let's get yesterday's rainfall. And we can see maybe right around here, maybe half inch or quarter inch there. So not too terribly bad right now. But I do know that a couple days ago, we had some rainfall estimates approaching 2 to 3 inches, maybe better than that in the southeast part of the county. So that's going to wrap it up, folks. So thank you for watching. We'll be doing updates when we're able to do them. And I encourage everyone to follow the official National Weather Service bulletins when they come out. You can get those by going to weather.gov/jacks. Everybody have a great evening.